Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm ready to do the next lesson, the next study in statistics here. What we're looking at this point is in Unit 2. It is the first study, Unit 2, study number 1. It actually is listed as Unit 1, study number 1, and that's because I put Unit 4 first. Why had I done that? That was because you don't have books, you don't have calculators yet, and things like that. And developing and working with the studies is easier to do without any other things on our hands. So let's look at this first one, this first study. It's called AP Statistics. Statistics actually breaks down into two different parts. First of all, you've got descriptive statistics, and then you got inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics is where you're describing or summarizing data you already have. It's things you definitely know. Examples might be SAT scores, shoe size of third graders at TSVA, things of that nature. Okay? Inferential is using sample information to infer something about an entire population. You're making a hypothesis, you're testing a claim. You cannot directly measure a whole population, so you have to infer something about the whole population. And this is done from a sample or some smaller group other than the entire census. Remember, we defined census in the last chapter. Okay? So, what are the phases of a statistical study? The first phase is gathering data. This is the most critical. Errors are made here are extremely hard to detect later on. An example might be taking a phone survey or polling data or something of that nature. The next step is going to be data organization and analysis. It's looking for patterns and summarizing the data. And the last one is probability based inference, and that's determining how likely something is to occur. And that's drawing a conclusion based upon the data that you have gathered, the data that you have organized, and the data that you gathered. Okay? So, some definitions and some terminology you need to understand. When we're talking about one singular piece of data, we call it the datum. D-A-T-U-M, datum. When we're talking about multiple pieces of data, it's a plural. Data. Data is more than one. Okay? So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that to be confusing to you. But datum or data. If I've got one piece of datum that's outrageous, it might be called an outliner. But in general, all the data is called data. Okay? Exploratory data analysis, when you're exploring the data without a specific question in mind, just to see what you can find. This might be just looking through the data, seeing if anything jumps out at you as a uh, maybe as a pattern or something that you could deal with. What types of data are we talking about? Well, I'm going to start over here on the right to begin with, and that's the categorical data. Okay? Categorical data can be quantitative in nature, but it doesn't make sense to do calculations with it. The example might be every zip code of the TXVA students. Well, that is good qualitative type information. It does have numbers in it, but it doesn't make any sense to do any calculations with it. We can't add them up, we can't subtract them. It just doesn't make any sense to do anything with that. Okay? But it is good information to use. Here are some other examples: your favorite colors, the city of residence, who you voted for president, your area code, things of that nature. Those are all categorical types of data. But when we talk about numerical data, it's quantitative in nature. You can do calculations with the data. It can be sorted, etc., etc. The number of anteaters on an island, or the test grades in a history class, or the heights of all the 10th graders at TXVA. These are all quantitative type information, numbers that you can do something with. Breaks down into two parts: discrete, it's a count. It's something that you can actually count and you get a discrete number and it's always going to be the same. Contiguous. Continuous. That means that it has measurements. The height of the third graders. Third graders are constantly growing. Trust me, they get taller. And with that thought in mind, the height of the third graders is something that you need to be aware of. It could be something that is not a discrete set of information. Okay? So let's look at some examples of this. If we're talking about over here, the populations of English speak uh, populations of English native speakers. Well, we're coming up with things like, U.S., uh, the UK, the Canada, Australia, and USA. Well, it's broken down. Obviously, it's got counts in here. What type of information would this be? Well, it's more qualitative, categorical type information because we really can't add the information together, right? And it's not really discrete or contiguous type measurements or anything. It is more of a categorical type information. Okay? How about this one? Travel times to work in North Carolina. Well, these are actual numbers, and they don't really change, do they? This would be an example of a quantitative, discrete information. Okay? It's something that you measured, but it is something that will be the same. It doesn't change very much. Okay? Let's go forward and look at some other examples. The number of minutes a student studies at a typical weeknight. Okay, besides 0. I mean, we're going to get past that, right? The number of minutes that you study. That would be something that you can measure. That'd be a measurable type of a number, right? Probably a contiguous number. It's not the same every single time. Batting averages of players in the Texas Rangers. Well, I don't really care about the Texas Rangers, but their batting averages are constantly changing. Every time they're a different number, right? That would be an example of a continuous quantitative type of number. Okay? How about this one? Zip code of students at TXVA. That would be an example of a categorical type of number. Okay? Well, having done this, you're ready for the 1.1 practice. Probably some terms you don't know there. Look them up. Bring questions to the TOGAs or to the Class Connect, and we'll talk about these type of things. We're getting ready to have to start using calculators, so get them ready. We'll be using them in the next couple of lessons.